Hey YouTube, this is a power stanced straight sword build, but with a difference. You may not have seen it done this way before. So in my right hand I can swap between the Warhawk Talon and the short sword, and in my left hand I can swap between the weathered straight sword and the cane sword. Yes, you heard that right. So why these swords? Is it just an off-meta player being different just for the sake of it? Well, there is a little bit of method behind the madness. So the Warhawk Talon and the short sword both have really nice R2 attacks. So the Warhawk Talon has a multi-hit R2 where you leap forward, and the short sword, as all straight sword aficionados will know, is the only straight sword in the game that has a poke on the R2 follow-up. So the first R2 is a poke, and also the second one. Now the ashes that I have equipped on the Warhawk Talon, I've got Spinning Slash, which everyone knows is really strong on a straight sword. On the short sword, I've got Piercing Fang, just to give me a bit more range and another option. On the weathered straight sword, I have Square Off, and on the cane sword, I've got Sword Dance. So we're at rune level 150 here. I've got 80 dex. The weapons are Keen Infused. And for talismans, I have Shard of Alexander. I've got Rotten Winged Sword Insignia for a multi-hit bonus. I've got Bull Goats for extra poise. And I've also got the Spear Talisman for counter damage on the thrust attacks on the short sword. And because we're dex, I have a couple of throwables which come in handy. We've got the Red Lightning Pot and Spark Aromatic. Now, I don't really use power stance setups at all. So I normally like to have a melee weapon in my right hand and then a casting tool or a shield in my left hand. The only time really I've done it recently, and it wasn't power stancing, it was just dual wielding, was the video I did on using the Carrion Sorcery Sword in the offhand. And I had a dagger in my right hand. That was quite a fun setup, so I thought I would go, a little bit further and do the power stance setup. Actually found it quite fun to play. I did have to play a bit more passively than I'd normally like to, especially when you're dealing with people who've got hyper armor, because obviously these weapons don't have a lot of range. So it is really waiting for them to have finished their attack and then try and punish it if I can. So even though the build isn't super optimized, it was still viable, got a few wins and a good time. What I really liked about it was the variety, particularly being able to swap between the Warhawk Talon and the short sword. So I typically start out with the Warhawk Talon, use the L1 attacks, maybe use the R2, use Spinning Slash, and then if my opponent is playing passive, I'd swap to the short sword. Hopefully they don't notice. And then I've got Piercing Fang as that surprise ranged attack. There wasn't really much need to switch to one-handing the weapon. So there's a couple of times where you'll see me use the weathered straight sword and Square Off, or the cane sword and Sword Dance, and that was really just for the hell of it, just to see if I could land it. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed the L1 moveset, being able to mix that up with the R2s and the Ashes of War, so that's what I went with most of the time. There's a couple of other setups which could be interesting to try. So on my Faith build, I could go for the Macallan Knight Sword and the Carrion Knight Sword. Both have really cool Ashes of War. Both have interesting R2 attacks as well. So for the Carrion Knight Sword, the R2 starts with a block and then it's a multi-hit. And the Macallan Knight Sword, you have that upward sweep, which looks really cool. So here's the stats. Hope you enjoyed the deals, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.